are listening to another episode of Rising from the Ashes with today's guest, Starr Goode.
With the Irish connections again, because the Romans never made it to Ireland, so they have the stronger traditions of goddesses. There's many mysterious and endless, and there's no final explanation. But I'd like to look at the Sheelas as really a relatively modern figure, because they were, if you go back 40,000 years to like the Chauvet Cave, or, tens of thousands of years to Neolithic culture, 5,000 years classical culture, hundreds of years Celtic culture. So they're really a relatively modern figure. And by looking at the functions of the Sheela, then we can have a sense of historical and ahistorical powers of the vulva. And some of those powers, to me, the main power is that they're protective. Apotropeia are protective. So they protect, they're placed over entrances or doors. To me, the main power is that they're protective. Apotropeia are protective. To me, the main power is that they're protective. Apotropeia are protective.
Everybody, welcome to Rising from the Ashes. It is the homie Rummy. Hope you are doing well. Today we are speaking with Starr Goode, author of Sheela Na Gig, a book. You can check out her work online. You can buy the physical copy. You can see for yourself what a Sheela Na Gig actually is. This is a great conversation and a good way to kind of wrap up this theme that we've been going on this season, this turning of the new year. We were entering 2023 talking about Celtic mysteries, Druidic mysteries, the Tuatha De Danann, a bunch of fantastic shows. And we've ended it with two wonderful women, Maria Wheatley, which was our last episode, and today with Starr Goode. So it's a great way to wrap it up. Speaking of wrapping it up, my friends, today we are talking about the vulva. We're talking about the sacred matriarch, talking about the protector. And this conversation gets there. It gets exactly where it needs to be. It's fantastic. I love it. Dan loves it. You're gonna love it. Everybody's gonna love it. So, my friends, We don't have any RFTA news today. Just some good old podcast house cleaning, some housekeeping, if you will. Make sure to join us over on the Telegram group chat, where you can become friends with Dan and myself, including all of the other wonderful people on that social media platform. We get to just share news, information, interesting topics, PDFs. You can even share whole movies if you have the patience to upload the file. And if you got a good service, it actually doesn't even take that long. It's pretty sweet. Telegram it's really like a wonderful social media that's pretty undervalued, I'd say. I mean, at some point it's inevitably going to pay its due homage and blow up. But until then, it's a really great, easy-to-use platform, and we would love for you to join us on there. If you've heard of Telegram, you've probably had a friend say, "Do you have Telegram?" And you're like, "No, I don't need another app on my phone." But now you're hearing about it again, and now you're debating it. Well, just do it. See what is good. See what's up. We will greet you with warm, fiery arms from the Fire Tribe, and wish you a good day. And you can scroll and check out all the really sweet stuff that's been posted on there. If you really love RFTA, you should go and swoop yourself a t-shirt, sticker, or a mug off of the store, the merch store. There is some sick designs ready for you to be fashionable, to be ready to have a conversation. Wearing an RFTA t-shirt will only be a great conversation starter for when you're out doing your socializing. You know, you can always get yourself a Sup Brahe shirt, fun design and made, and people can say, what's up, Brahe? And they're like, "Oh, you don't even know the half of it. Let me tell you about Johannes Kepler and Tycho Brahe, two famous magical occult astrologers from the Bohemian inner magic circle of Rudolph II." You know, and then go in on that, and going on Uraniborg and stuff, and going on whatever. But if you support us through that, that's a great way. There's another way too. It's called Patreon. We have amazing content there, my friends. Great content. For $3 a month, you can get access to all of those wonderful shows. If you like the way we do it, if you dig what we do, that's a great way to do it, my friends. Support us on the Patreon. I want to thank everybody that listens to the show all over the world. I mean, guys, we're stretching our wonderful arms out the entire globe, and we're getting love back. It's amazing. I want to thank you guys so much. I would love for you guys to email us at risingfromtheashespod@protonmail.com. That would be amazing, guys. Email us. We've gotten plenty of emails from amazing people in the Fire Tribe, and it's just so cool to hear people from other countries. You know, what you like, where you guys live, like what are you guys doing, what you like about the show. And we got 136 extra downloads from Ireland alone in the past month. So shout out to you guys. We are talking about the homeland. We would love for you to reach out to us with any Irish mythologies, Celtic stuff that we're missing out on. You know, we got a lot more Swedish listeners as well, and German, and the Netherlands with a whopping extra 5.3% gain and 406 new listeners from the Netherlands. And also shout out to the UK. We have 420 listeners coming from that region. And Australia is our second in line to the US. That's amazing. So really excited to see these numbers growing. You know, we have 16 fans in Thailand, 15 in Greece, 13 in Iceland, people in Israel, Finland, Denmark, Spain, Portugal, Czech Republic, 7 Japan listeners, Austria, Estonia, Singapore, Argentina, Mexico, Uzbekistan, South Africa, Colombia, France, Peru, India, Guatemala, Honduras, Barbados, Panama, Turkey, Indonesia, Italy, Jersey, Nepal, Pakistan, Poland, and Romania. So, I expect an email from everybody, okay? I want my inbox to be blowing up with what you guys gotta say. Give us some feedback. Reach out to us. We have some secret, awesome sauce coming for the show soon. Speaking of secret, extra special sauce, you should go to our YouTube page and subscribe to us there as well. We do Sunday live streams where we dive deep. We dive deep into all of the fun, alternative, fringe, historic things that we find interesting. And they've only been getting better. They've been great conversations. We've had great turnouts on the live. Thank you guys for tuning in to the live. That means so much. It really does. Yeah, we went pretty hard on the subterranean realms, lost cities, and the underworld mythologies and ancient cultures. Past couple streams, that was really fun. There's so much when you start diving into these mysteries and the mythologies of the underworld. Got some really good serpent symbolism and dragon symbolism episodes. So many things. Check out the YouTube channel, guys, and get yourself a sweet t-shirt. Do it. Get one for your lovely partner. Get them a big extra large one so they can sleep in it. They can go outside and drink their morning cup of coffee, just gazing as the sun crests over the hill. And as you're stretching your body, getting ready for the love to enter and flow. Sip that sweet hot brew. Let it slide down your soul and get warm and juicy. Well, I won't hold you any further, my friends. Get ready for a fantastic conversation with a fantastic author, Starr Goode, talking to us about Sheela Na Gig.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to
Rising
From the Ashes. I'm Danny Naki Dan.
I am the homie Romy. Hello. It is wonderful to be here with you today, sir.
And what's goody in the hoodie, dear Roman?
Well, we are very stoked and honored to be chatting with another fellow author, going to enlighten us on some deeper depths of the matriarchal society.
Sheela Na Gig.
The Sheela Na Gig, specifically, with Starr Goode. Is that how you say your name?
Yes, Goode.
Starr Goode. And it is a wonderful honor to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Especially the day after Sheela Na Gig Day.
Yes, I know.
Did you celebrate this holiday?
Well, I always feel in touch with the Sheelas. You know, they're sort of a grounding foundation for me. But I certainly got a lot of stuff on Facebook about the Sheelas, and so I was responding to those.
Wonderful.
Yeah, for people that don't know, tell us what the Sheela Na Gig is, or was, or could be, or however you want to describe it.
All right, just to give you a technical definition, Sheela Na Gigs are stone carvings on medieval churches between the 12th and 17th century Common Era. So they're medieval figures on Catholic churches, and they are supernatural women who are displaying their vulvas. They're nude figures. They're not ordinary women, but they have very exaggerated and capacious vulvas, and they are displaying their vulvas on churches. So that is what a Sheela Na Gig is. Very odd to see such a figure in the middle of the misogyny of the Middle Ages, but that's what they are.
Mm.
So was it like
meanings and functions are mysterious and endless, but that's what they are: stone figures of female display, or sacred display, as I call it, of women, females on Catholic churches between the 12th and 17th centuries.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why were they putting it? Why were they putting it on Catholic churches? Is there a certain reason why they were doing it? Was it to like say, "Hey, look, I have a vagina"? Or
it's a vulva. It's the vulva. It's the external genitalia. You know.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's why I write a whole book. Okay, to explain the mysteries of that. There's many different theories, but my well-reasoned and well-evidenced feeling is that they are a continuation of the civilization of the goddess, that they are figures, and that they're connected in my book, that they're connected through Celtic culture, through classical culture, through Neolithic culture, and back to the Paleolithic carvings of vulva, you know, going back 40,000 years. So the Sheelas are a continuation of that thread of the civilization of the goddess, because, you know, the goddess or nature can't be stamped out, otherwise there's no life, you know. And as long as there were women, to Maria Gimbutas, the great archaeologist, said these things could only be stamped out with the extermination of all females. So it's the life force that can't be done away with.
Yes.
So the Sheelas are that. Now, then the powers of the vulva are mysterious and endless, and there's no final explanation. But I'd like to look at the Sheelas as really a relatively modern figure, because they were, you know, if you go back 40,000 years to like the Chauvet Cave, or, you know, tens of thousands of years to Neolithic culture, 5,000 years classical culture, hundreds of years Celtic culture. So they're really a relatively modern figure. And by looking at the functions of the Sheela, then we can have a sense of historical and ahistorical powers of the vulva. And some of those powers, to me, the main power is that they're protective. Apotropeia are protective. So they protect, they're placed over entrances or doors. They guard, they're goddesses that guard over passages, but they have other functions. They help women in childbirth. They're also used for healing. They protect the dead, look over the dead. So they have functions with life and death and healing. But to me, mainly, one of their biggest powers is the power to protect. So those are just some of them. I mean, and again, just like in life, there's no final word that you can say.
That's wonderful. I'm curious about the construction of them. Were they put on after the churches were built, because maybe the churches were built on top of ancient Celtic sites, which I think was often the case a lot of times? There would be a placement of a church on top of another sacred line to a culture that predated that church. So was it like they stamped out this sacred site, put a church on it, and then someone came around and put the Sheela on top of that to say, like, you know, we're putting this here? Or were they built by the Masons who actually built these churches?
Well, there's no text explaining the Sheelas. There's no text. Okay, so you have to go by. I mean, they're very visual images. They're very striking pieces of art. So you have to go by that, and then other traditions. Now, of course, we know that sacred sites, the church often built their churches over sacred sites. And we do know that there were medieval masons who were carving those Sheelas. So it's hard to say for sure, but often I think that they were constructed when the church was constructed, so that they were part of the church. The first Sheela Na Gig I ever saw, I mean, of course I had read about them and seen them, was Killinaboy Church in County Clare. And I went to Ireland. This was, I don't know, 1986 or 5 or something. So I'm walking up the street to go see the church. I'm really excited. I'm going to see my first Sheela Na Gig. And there were workers on the side of the road. You know, they're putting stones up on the side. And the fellow says, "Oh, have you seen our Sheela Na Gig up the road?" I said, yeah, I'm going right now. I'm so excited. And he said, "The Christians put her up there to bring the pagans in." So I thought that was just a little bit of folk tradition and folk wisdom, but certainly, especially in Ireland, because Ireland was never invaded by the Romans. So unlike Britain or other places in Europe, so they had a stronger thread with their indigenous culture, with the Celtic goddesses. And the Sheelas do reflect those a lot in their functions and their traditions. So I think that they were built with the church. I mean, the Irish Masons who were carving them, we don't completely know what was in their mind. But after all, you know, for millennia, the soil of Europe, as you said, was in our pre-show chat, that it was pagan first, 100,000 years of goddess worship. So it's not so surprised to see a supernatural figure on these churches, and especially because they had so much in Ireland, where there's more Sheelas than anywhere else. I mean, and there's certainly Sheelas in Celtic parts of Great Britain, in Scotland and Wales. So it's not so surprised to see a supernatural figure like that. And the Sheela does connect with myths and traditions of Celtic culture and, like, goddesses of sovereignty. But she also connects with some of their sculptural traditions of big stone heads. And so there's all kinds of threads of connection to the culture. And one Sheela is by Saint Gobnet, a big statue of Saint Gobnet, who was Gobnet, a saint. But you know how saints, goddesses become saints, traditions, but they keep not Bridget and Saint Bridget, which, by the way, there's a Bridget's a bank holiday in Ireland now.
Oh, wow.
That just happened this year. But in that, by St. Gobnet, and then there's a cathedral right next to it with the Sheela Na Gig, and right next to that is a holy well, which was thought that a trio of hags once guarded the safety of that area. So in some ways, the Sheelas take over some of the functions and meanings of the earlier Celtic goddesses, which is something you were just touching on.
That's wonderful. So these kind of have they remind me of this kind of very specific art style that you see in this part of the world, in the British Isles and like the northern European countries. But it also kind of reminds me of some of this South American, like Peruvian phallic art. And so that's really interesting. Like you have that, I guess, almost hermetic halfway around the world, having a more phallic little stone structures, that were happening. So do you think there's any connection between those cross cultures, or that kind of art style?
Well, I think that the vulva is an archetype. It's a timeless pattern of energy in the human psyche. So therefore, it can rise up independently all over the world. I mean,
Yes.
it's your primordial function of, giving birth, and it's experience that all people have. And so it's because it's an archetype, or again, something that's ahistorical or atemporal, that of course it's all over the world. And then again, if people want to see my book, or if they go to my website, stargoode.com, you'll see that there's a lot of images there. And there's also my latest essay, The Icon of the Vulva, A Basis of Civilization, which, okay, you don't want to read. There's really a lot of fun images. And it takes up, and in that, of course, it's in my book, but in that essay, it looks at worldwide figures of display. So, of course, this is all over the world. And of course, there can be local coloring and distinctions on, in different parts of the world. But the functions of the vulva, even though they look different, they still retain powers over life and death and, of course, renewal. So they have similar meanings. You can see a Sheela that's over a door in Ireland to protect the passage. And you can see a Gorgon in Greece over a temple, Gorgon or Medusa over a temple, watching over the pediment of the temple, watching over the entrance. Or you can go to Oceania and see a Dulukai with a sacred display and spread legs, and she's guarding over the entrance to the men's ceremonial huts. So you just see these, again, cross-culturally, because it's embedded in our psyches.
Absolutely. I mean, I cannot argue with you there. The deep mysteries and the life of the creation of life, the alchemical chamber,
That's a wonderful, I love that. I love that. That's very colorful and vivid.
I try to. Dan, looks like are you about to perch on the branch of curiosity with a question here, brother?
Well, yeah. What does Sheela Na Gig mean? Is there like a etymology to that, or does it have a deeper meaning?
I think Sheela means lady in Irish.
Well, that's a good question. And nobody really knows for sure what it means, because it's a amalgamation of English and Celtic, the Celtic language, Irish Gaelic. So Seal, like you were just saying, can mean like fairy woman. And Na Gig, it can mean someone on her hunkers, someone who's squatting down, because most Sheelas are in a squatting position, like a frog-like squatting position. So it can mean that. Sometimes people, scholars have analyzed it. It means Julieta of the breasts. So there's different meanings. I mean, and also you can think of Sheela as a slang in Australia, like Sheila's a woman in Australia. And I mean, I touch upon these in my book, but one scholar just said, it's a word that doesn't make sense, so I don't even want to deal with it. But nobody really knows for sure, okay? But it certainly came up in the Irish countryside, because these are sort of these pagan figures, pagan countryside. These are in more remote areas. They're not urban figures. So there's a lot of traditions, whatever the original meanings are, but there's a lot of folk traditions that come around them. And that was certainly the folk name of these figures, Sheela Na Gigs. Oh, and I wanted to touch on something else that you said too, Dan. The Sheelas are having this re-blossoming. Again, their energies went down in the roots of the rhizome, and sometimes energies like lay underground for a while. But now, in the 20th century, there was the return of the goddess, which to me is the great psychic event of the 20th century, the return of the goddess. So now the Sheelas have become such popular figures. I mean, when I was first looking and doing my research on the Sheela, I was had a Xerox of somebody's Jorgen Andersen, the great book, The Witch on the Wall. That was his doctoral thesis about erotic architecture. And so when I was going around up to Ireland and the British Isles trying to locate Sheelas, I was going by a journal that was written in the 1930s. But now there's all kinds of books and maps that you can, Jack Roberts and my colleagues do wonderful work. Now you can just buy one of those and have really direct direction. So the Sheela and many Irish feminists are taking the Sheela up as, I wouldn't say a replacement of the Virgin Mary, but another kind of energy. I mean, I'm all for love and nurturing, but this is another kind of fierce energy and power, and that they're taking the Sheelas on as, or celebrating them. So I just, I guess I shouldn't be astonished, but over the course of my many years of studying them, I'm just really seeing this flowering of the figure. I mean, of interest in the figure.
No, by the way, no pun intended.
Okay, right. I just want to say, last month on February 18th, they just discovered another Sheela in County Wexford. Sometimes they find them, like the cover of my book. That Sheela was found in the Rahara Sheela in 1990 during a church cleanup. So they were cleaning up a castle, and they discovered another Sheela. This was like 1 month ago.
Wow.
Because I think that none so blind as those who cannot see, but because there's this perception of the Sheelas, then they can be seen more. Or, of course, I'm in these Sheela groups, and now they're saying, oh, go look at this church over here, this building over here. I think we see a Sheela, and they were sort of invisible before. Somewhat, some of them.
Do you think there's a possibility of their literally being manifested, or maybe there is actual magical attributes to them, where maybe they are arising again as a cyclical piece of some deeper reality that we're living in?
Well, I would never want to gainsay or cross deeper realities or magic. I would never want to go against that, because actually, it is magical, this interest and this appearance. So, the Sheelas are a force to be reckoned with. So.
And there's this. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's this association with the, like a Gorgon tie or some of these old associations with the goddess and stone.
Yeah.
And serpents and stone and things like that. So, I'd love to believe that, if, and the British Isles are such an energy hotspot, like a magnetic hotspot. There's a lot of, ancient stone circles there, as well as other places in the world. But I feel like if they're going to start sprouting up, and now we're talking on a big magical metaphysical scale, but, it would be here. And as slowly as the rest of the world, we come together, band together, because I am fully sold and a firm believer on the cohesion and to bring back a balance into a matriarchal system. And, I think you do need that balance, and not just maybe necessarily one-sided on, you go through phases, and they talk about this triple goddess and the phase from the complete dark as you go into the bright, and it's a death and a rebirth, and then the golden age of actually living, or that period, that time. What's your take on the triple goddess and how this may tie into the Sheela Na Gigs? Well,
that was a mouthful, Roman.
Sorry, okay. I apologize. I do that sometimes.
That's okay. I love your. You have an inquiring soul. Well, to touch on the Medusa or the Gorgon, those are stone figures. I mean, some of them. I mean, of course, Athena has the Gorgon on her shield as protection, but many of them, as I said before, are over entrances. Okay, so her power is. So she is guarding over them, but also her power is it's in her eyes, but it's also in her mouth. Her mouth is an upper vulva because she gives birth to her children through her mouth. Okay. And of course the Gorgons have the snake heads, and the snakes are a quintessential symbol of regeneration, right? Shedding their skin, and that they can exist in different worlds, like the above ground and the underworld. So the Sheela connects those, and of course, all the powers are connected with her display and her femaleness, the sacred creative power of femaleness. Now, in terms of the triple goddess, the Sheelas are interesting because they are an antinomy. They combine. Of course, they're crones. They're hags. They're crones. Mm-hmm. They have bald heads. Some of them. I mean, the Sheelas all look different because they're carved by different masons. The one thing that makes a Sheela is she has to have an aggressive display of her vulva. But many Sheelas are bald. Most Sheelas are hag-like. They have emaciated breasts and ribs. But so you have this death-like quality there. Some of them have skulls of death, but it's all incorporated into the body, where you have this round, juicy, luscious vulva. So there's this other kind of fecundity. So they have life and death, like kind of maiden crone in the same figure. And some Sheelas even look pregnant. There's one Sheela on the Isle of Lewis, the Rodale Sheela, has just given birth. She's holding a baby. Of course, it looks like a seal, but anyway, she's holding. So there are these forces, opposites, that she embodies in her very being and in her iconography when you look at the Sheela. So she combines the youthfulness of the maiden in her erotic display, but in a hag-like body. So she has those. And of course, if I didn't already say this, mothers used Sheelas as birthing stones to help them. And in some ways, the Sheelas were thought, these are folk traditions around them, that they were responsible for all life, not just human life, but animal life, all life on Earth and the cosmos. So in that way, they have this mothering energy. So those are some connections, I think you could say.
Absolutely. This, these goddess sisters, the triple sisters, the three goddesses of time that live before time and after time and are, essentially the creatrix energy. Are there any stories in Celtic mythology deities, the stories of the matriarchal or the feminine deities, where they've been told that they've shown their vulvas for the specific action of protection? Or
were you talking divinity? About the fates? Were you saying the three sisters? Were you talking about kind of the fates?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the three fates. Yeah, and I actually realized I diverted into a completely different question midway through that. But
and also I was thinking, in Celtic tradition, there's triple goddesses too.
Yes.
There's three goddesses. So, give me your question again.
The question, I guess, really ultimately was through your research into the Sheela Na Gig, how deep into Irish and Celtic mythologies did you get?
Well, I did read, of course, background material on that, because the Sheelas, after all, those are the foremothers of the Sheela. And as I said before, there's a certain, I don't know if I'd say purity, but it's untainted connection. Because when the Romans came, they really obliterated cultures and made those people feel like somehow they were inferior. You have this Roman juggernaut coming, and the people were oppressed, and their cultures were more denigrated. But so you don't have that with the Irish connections, again, because the Romans never made it to Ireland. So they have the stronger traditions of goddesses. There's not many, but some like wooden goddesses that are found in bogs, that with the vulvas and they're dating back.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Inside bogs, they found them?
Right. They did find them because they were weathered, and there's something about the acids in the bogs that preserve them.
Yeah, bog bodies.
Mm-hmm.
These are
there's
made of wood.
mummies,
These are made of
mummies
wood.
in the
These
bog.
aren't the mummified.
Yeah, but that's still really interesting because, a lot of times, especially in the British Isles, witches or, women and powerful deities have been associated with water, specifically like, Lady of the Lake and different archetypes like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
to
then-
be found pulled out of a bog is really cool.
Right. So there's those, and those those are pre-Celtic cultures. They're Neolithic because there's that Neolithic culture in the British Isles and Ireland. And as you were saying, the stone circles, which I was quite obsessed with them. I went from, Land's End and Cornwall up to the Orkney Islands looking at the stone circles. They're so mesmerizing.
Have you had
And-
any experiences at these stone circles that were like any meditative experiences or any of these major downloads that people have when they visit these sites?
Well, I certainly felt a oneness, that oceanic connection that we want. We don't have to microdose on something to get that feeling that you can get, that you're connected to everything, and it's a sense of peacefulness. And I don't know if I want to say rightness, but wholeness, that's what I want to say. I would feel that. And of course, a circle is really one of the most ancient symbols of wholeness. So I had, and plus you're in these incredibly beautiful places, and the stones are aligned with astrological, cosmological events. So they're really, to use your word, very magical. Very magical. But that was a pre-Sheela obsession. And I still have a megalithomania. I still love those circles. There was something else I wanted to say, that and sometimes the Celtic goddesses are connected with different trees, and also there's goddesses of sovereignty. That the goddess is the land. The thing has to mate with the goddess to have a sovereignty. And the Sheelas are very connected to that. There's hags of the castle where Irish chieftains would put Sheelas up on castles, on their castle towers, to claim that this was their territory. The Sheela was a statement of their territory. So that really connects her to the goddess of sovereignty.
Is there a connection with the Sheela and like other places like Greece or Rome or South America where they have similar depictions of women showing their vulvas?
Well, as I say, it's an archetype. It's a sacred display. Is a universal phenomena. So,
Yoniversal.
Yoniversal. There you go. The Yoniverse. So, of course, you can find it really on every continent. I don't know, maybe not Antarctica. I've never seen that. But, North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Oceania, even in Hawaii. So it's all over. So that's a function that there is in this. It's a phenomena. I should say that it's a phenomena. Now, to me, I have a specific definition of a Sheela as something between the 12th and 17th century occurring in Ireland and the British Isles, that they are an example of an archetype in a specific time and place. Now, if you were in India, it might be called Kali, because some of the Kalis are display figures. If you were in South America, or some of you were talking about Peru, they have those little mochi goddesses, and there's Nanabe stones. Or in the Caribbean, they have display figures, Atabi, Idaba, Chehubaba, and they all have functions, but they're, again, they have prominently displayed vulvas. So I wouldn't call those Sheela Na Gigs. I would give them their local name. If you have an archetype, it's a universal image, but it takes on a local name and coloring. So to me, the Sheelas are, I wouldn't call something, I don't know, from Africa a Sheela, but I would say it's a figure of sacred display, that they're sisters in that lineage and power of creative power.
Sisters, yes.
I mean, that's how I see it.
Yes, banding together to create safety and sanction for the people. So if you know, if you know, and also if you don't know, then they're going to help protect that not knowing. Maybe they're not ready to accept the deeper depth, because a lot of times knowledge is scary to people, trying to actually branch out. And if people don't want to dive too much deeper than they have to just to get by. And if these Sheela Na Gigs are a sacred mystery, withholding some ancient knowledge that you can just intuitively almost kind of gather just by being around one, then being exposed to the lifting of the veil, if you will.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't handle that. So, but maybe we are having an awakening, and the Sheelas are appearing to us yet again. Maybe we'll find more. If one was just found last week, there's plenty more to be found.
February 18th, County Wexford. Yes. Oh, well, I mean, to my way of thinking, there's no doubt that there's a shift in consciousness going, fingers crossed, because we need a different path, a path of empathy and connection and wholeness. And again, if we're all offspring of the Great Mother, we need an age of relatedness, not this age of separation, all apart, but we're all children of Mother Earth. And so we're all connected and have this unity. So, and to get to your point, yeah, well, I mean, all of us can have terror and awe at the unknown and the forces that are bigger than us. We're just, a little cork floating in the ocean, but, and people are afraid. Yeah, people are afraid. I'm thinking of this book by the great psychologist Eric Fromm, Escape from Freedom. In some ways, people are afraid. And certainly that's a very taboo subject, this display, where it's not, pornographic or exploitative, but celebratory and sacred. So, female sexuality and forces of nature can be very threatening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a complete opposite of what at least what they tell us the church is about. Like to just have exposed genitals is just, it's like the utmost of what a sin might be considered. So it is really interesting to see them on these churches. It reminds me of the Black Madonnas. The statues found underneath in some of the crypts in some of these famous cathedrals.
Yeah, those are very fascinating, and in a way, it's how you regard female. I mean, I have my own explanation and theory, and I hope analysis. And of course, I love the Sheelas. I don't want to spend time around something I don't love, or spend years of my life doing this and writing this book, or going to the islands, or now giving lectures. I just want to. I want to just be in love. I want to be, and I love these figures. But I would be remiss to say there aren't some people who analyze the Sheela who just see them as images of lust, warning against sin, because that's how they see the female body. It's sinful, the gateway to the devil, cause of the downfall of men. So there are some people who feel that, have that. But that's not how I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you regard
Why would they
female
not?
body,
It's held high.
Yeah, okay, good.
Always trying to go back home.
Well, Christians definitely, Catholics alike, have this affinity towards, women in the first place. They're very patriarchal,
Right.
and pretty much anything to do with women because of Eve eating of the fruit and being tempted by the serpent. They have this evil connotation associated with the female because it brought us to the fall. Because we were talking about this because of the idea of St. Patrick, because it was St. Patrick's Day on Friday. And then it's kind of weird that Sheela Na Gig Day is the very next day after St. Patrick's Day. It's almost like the patriarch Day and the matriarch Day.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Well, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, so yeah, I was just going to say, like, it's very interesting that, the days are right next to each other. And seemingly what it seems like to me about St. Patrick is he drove the goddess, which is associated with the serpent a lot of times, and the Medusa and the energies and all of those things, and Eve with the serpent. I think that he came and took the goddess out of Ireland in the early 400 or late 400s. But it's interesting to see that this type of figure pops up again later in the 1100s and 1200s. So seemingly they didn't completely get rid of it, and they even, just transformed the goddess into a saint and called it a day, basically. So,
well, the thing is, and especially among the pagans and things, it's, you have 100,000 years of goddess worship, and then you have this 2,000-year layover, that 1,500-year layover, and you can't. Plus, the other thing is, we all have instincts. You can't root out people's instincts, So, there is one. What you said was so rich, Dan. There's so many things I could respond to. But this idea of driving the snakes out. So often the snakes, feel like an image of misogyny where you're driving the goddess out, like slaying the dragon is one of the central mythological themes of Indo-European patriarchal culture. So driving the snakes out. Yeah. Of course, there are no snakes in Ireland, but I mean, it's driving the goddess. Right. It's driving the goddess out. And there is one Sheela in Ireland who is connected. There's a Sheela Na Gig. I could look it up in my book, but I'll just say it off the top of my head. That someone said, "Oh, that Sheela, she was a sinful woman, and she went against St. Patrick, and they threw her in the water, and that's her image now with the Sheela on there." But of course, there's other images. That the Sheela is really the life force. The ever-renewing life force.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting story with St. Patrick, and I believe it's Cora. And she turns into a snake and swallows him whole. And I think he's in there for 40 days and 40 nights, ironically.
Really? This is like Noah and the whale, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when he comes out of there, he's renewed and he's able to somehow defeat this goddess. And it's just very, funny, I guess.
Well, okay, so he gets renewed in this womb of this snake, but then he...
Exactly.
Then he
gets swallowed by, yeah. And... when it's interesting that they're over openings, right? I mean, that's almost symbolizing, to me, it's like portal symbolism, like a lot of these archways that you have that lead from land into rocks that go underground, or you have them from land that go into areas of water. Then you have some at the tops of mountains that seemingly go into the sky realm. It's almost like when you go through these portals, you're going into a different type of realm. And so you have to protect yourself in order to go into this realm. And so by having the Sheelas there, it's like protecting you, sanctifying you, purifying you to be able to go inside of these sacred places.
That's lovely, Dan. I really like that because she is a guardian of the portals. I mean, of course, Vulva is a portal, a site of entries and exits, So she does guard over the passages. And if you think of the yoni you're going in there, sometimes you could think of it as a gateway to the divine, because mysterious places that we're going to, that you're talking about, are sacred, or they're very transformational. And it does, you do need some courage and some helpers, as you're saying. So, and maybe it is a purifying to acknowledge that energy, bow to that energy, and then go off on your adventure. And I have to say about the water, but anyway, I loved what you said, that a lot of Sheelas are by holy wells. Connection with water. But I think what you just said was very profound.
Yeah, well, the femininity and the woman figure, even Eve, biblically, her name means life, and she's the life-giving water to everything. So even biblically, females have this association with water, and even Ma, right? Maritime, matriarchy. It has an association with water and the life-giving waters. And it's interesting. I read too that they used to put her on ships and vessels.
Sheela Na Gig?
Yeah.
There is, was it 17th or 18th century, there was a ship called Sheela Na Gig. That British Isles, and you mean like that, not like a mast, but it's an iconic figure in the front of the ship, like I don't know if that's called the bow, the front, where in a way she's this guide star to the mariners on the boat, right?
Interesting that you said guide stars, because I've been staring at this one picture for quite a while, the one in the church at Kilpeck, Hertfordshire, in England. And this, if you look at it, it does kind of look like a 5-pointed star.
Interesting.
With the arms out and the legs out, and then the head being the top of that star.
Share that screen.
That's fascinating. You have it disabled. That is the most famous Sheela Na Gig. That is the most reproduced and well-known Sheela Na Gig. Now that's from a 12th century church. I was there. It's in on the border, like with Wales, Herefordshire. Yeah, that's the 12th century church. This is a gem of Romanesque architecture. She's on the corbel table, and she's a very Mary sort of figure. She's one of 80 figures on this church. This is a beautiful church. It's just so, all the corbel figures, and it has a beautiful carved door that has snakes going up and down these columns. So she's quite the famous figure. And she's, to me, seems sort of pleased with herself. She's sort of merry in her display. So this is an early figure, and again, the most well-known. So I see what you mean about those 5 points.
Yeah, it also seems to me as inviting, like, come through here, or like come in here, like opening up a door for a person to walk through the door. You're saying, here, let me help you. It almost has that type of, because she's spreading it open. The introduction
to my book, it's like 2 pages, and I call it Invitation In. This is your invitation mysteries, like you say. It isn't. It's sort of calling you, isn't she? She's opening up.
Yes, exactly my point. Yes, it's very inviting. That's what seems very weird to me about it being on a church. Is it doesn't have like a negative connotation to it. It seems almost as a positive invitation, like welcoming. So it's interesting that it scares people away, but I could see why it attracts pagans, because pagans probably are aware of the meaning behind it.
Well, this is a figure that they would recognize,
Yeah.
This church too, Kilpack, Herefordshire, like the church itself is pretty symbolically imbued with a bunch of other carvings. Like you definitely have the green man all over this one with the vines coming out of his mouth, and he said some snakes going up the walls.
Well, that's the door. That the door in the front has the green man and the snakes. This has a lot of like Celtic, Irish, Scandinavian. This is a real. This was the Hertfordshire School of Architecture. Which when I went there that day, this bus pulled up, and people were on a tour of local churches, and the fellow who was showing them was a guide, and I was following them around, and I said, "Oh, well, can I listen?" He goes, "I can't stop you." But anyway, he became very friendly to me when he saw how interested I was, and he told me about I said, "Well, what can you tell me? Any books?" And it's called the Herefordshire Book of Sculpture. So this was a center. This, and in York, in more northern England, was a center of sculpture, and people were making tremendous pilgrimages back and forth to northern France and into Spain. So there was a lot of exchange of things. And this church, like I said, it is considered a gem of Irish architecture. And you see it's on the corbel table, and if you could go to the right and left, again, there's 80 feet. Yeah, and you see the little animal right next to her. And a lot of different figures. So this was, these were really masterful artisans who made this church. And inside it's really stunning too, but it's a beautiful church. Yeah, see, that's the door. Yeah. And you see there's a tree of life in the tympanum there at the top. There's a tree of life. Mm. And you see, again, the green man, what you were saying at the top of that one column where the foliage is coming out and the snakes going up and down. So are these snakes sinful? Are they images of the forces of life, I mean, to me, more than interpretation, just look at the image. Interpretations rise and fall, but look at the image. To me, this is such a rich, joyful imagery.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is just masterful mason work here.
Beautiful.
This door is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. That reminds me.
That's what makes me think. That's what makes me think that it's not church. It wasn't originally a church. It was originally, some
pagan
type of
hall.
Pagan, a hall, and it got changed into a church later, and they just kept the decorations because the curtains don't match the drapes in the scenario.
Well, it's certainly, when you go to a place of tremendous energy, the ley lines. I think Roman was sort of talking about that a little bit. Like, it is a place of tremendous energy.
Mm.
It's very atmospheric. That was one of my great days on my Sheela adventures, seeing that church, because it was the most famous Sheela. And finally it's like a pilgrimage, and I was arriving to see what I had only seen in books.
Yeah.
I hope to be able to experience some more of these European cathedrals one day, because we have been looking at them and the significance of sacred architecture for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about it for so long until you get to actually experience it, and Dan and I, we don't live near each other anymore, but we had met up in San Francisco and did some fun adventuring. We tried to go into this cathedral, and we did. We had an okay time,
Grace Cathedral? What you mean, in San Francisco?
In San Francisco, yeah, Grace.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. They did a good job, but it's just not, it's not the same. It's the same in the sense it's incredibly built on sacred lands of the indigenous people, as is the entire city of San Francisco.
Yeah.
But
is that where you live, Roman, in San Francisco?
No, I was living up in Mendocino, and Dan lives.
Oh, we were talking about that. Oh, you're in Hawaii or something, aren't you?
Yeah, I moved back out to Big Island for a little bit here, so Yep.
I live very near you, Starr. I live about 45 minutes from Santa Barbara.
Oh, really? Where?
In Santa Maria.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. Just
So
right there.
go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
I was gonna say let's bring it back and do an opposite. Like, we've been chatting for an hour and a half now. Let's ask you how you started in this. How did your writing career start? We usually do that question at the very beginning, but do you mind telling us like a little bit of your journey to how you got led to doing this type of esoteric research?
Well, I reverberate or resonate with what you were saying about magic. And some of us, we just come in with certain archetypes, activated. We're not just a blank slate when we're born. And sometimes, there's energies that, if we're lucky enough, we are drawn to our path. Okay. So, feminism and then the goddess was just part of my natural path. I mean, it's just an interior calling. It's just an interior energy that's part of my meaning in this world. So I came to Berkeley in the late 60s, so it was a very radical time, which I really fit in because I lived in this small town on the San Francisco Peninsula called Millbrae, and it was very stuffy for me. But across to Berkeley, I found the world where I belonged, and everything started to open up. But then some of us, even though there's this important work in the outer playing fields of life, we wanted a sacred image. And so the goddess, I just think the goddess just started appearing as a necessity for the survival of the world. So her return was part of this return to our ancient natural roots, because the goddess is part of our natural heritage. I was at a Zoom conference last week, and a mother of modern matriarchal studies, Heidi Gottner-Abendroth, she made this very interesting statement. She said, patriarchy is historical. It's not natural. Therefore, it can be overcome, because we've been sold the sort of bill of goods that it's nature. Therefore,
yes,
we're in deep trouble. But no, it's historical. So she just started appearing in my poetry and around. And, you have a vibration. Like, how did you two get together? Your friends, you have, your affinities. So in 1984, someone showed me, a woman that I knew, she said, I think you would like this. And she showed me a picture of a Sheela Na Gig. I was like, what is this? What is this? It was so astonishing to me. And as I said, I fell in love, and I said, I have to know. I mean, what is this doing there? How did she come to be there? So I just began my journey. I read the Xerox book, The Witch on the Wall, and then I started going to Ireland and the British Isles and traveling, and then I started giving talks, and then it just, I can be a pretty slothful person, but I can get obsessed. I became obsessed, and so that's how it came to me. But the goddess was in the air. The word patriarchy is in the zeitgeist now. It didn't used to be in the zeitgeist. People didn't have an analysis of that or a sense of that. So that's in the zeitgeist. And then the sense of the goddess. We just hope she doesn't get commodified, just become another product. But, something is stirring in the air, or just the idea of Gaia being in outer space and seeing Mother Earth for the first time in her wholeness and her beauty. So it's something in the spirit of our times, and I'm part of it, and hope I can leave my own little pebble on the beach.
Absolutely, you are, and what a wonderful beach it is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Then
amazing.
I started doing, wait, Roman, I was going to say one more thing. Then I started doing that TV show, The Goddess in Art, which if you go to my website.
Let's talk about that.
Well, anyway, I started doing that, and that connected me with a lot of people. So it's there. It's on YouTube, and it's on my website, stargoody.com. So where I interviewed a lot of artists and scholars. So then I just, and it was just natural for me, you know? As Joseph Campbell would say, I was following my bliss.
That is one. Well, you know, when you start to really tap in to the true, like, you know, heart and the message and the reason that we're here, you get shown the path and you get taken the path, and intuition is here for us. And that's probably another symbolic thing that the Sheela is here to represent and remind us.
Yeah, I like that, because it's what I was saying before, looking at the figure. That's why I close my book. You know, I say, you know, interpretation may rise and fall, whatever, interpretations we project onto her. The image remains powerful, mysterious, eternal. So the image remains, and that ties in to intuition, which of course is one of our greatest gifts, with the gift of imagination, but our intuition, which is our inner connection to source, you know? So using that word intuition, I really like that.
Sorry, my neighbor has got a supremely loud truck, but I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if you guys can hear that truck in the background.
Just a little bit.
You have a super crazy echo going on right now, though.
But what can you tell us about this project that you were working on, this TV series? What was it? How did you get involved in that, and what was the main takeaway?
Well, I probably did that before you were born, but the first one was in 1985. A friend of mine was doing, he was president of Artist Equity, and he was doing a cable show. And the woman who was going to moderate it was in a car accident, and he invited me. So, okay, it was like the day the Challenger blew up. Okay, so then I realized, it was the Goddess in Contemporary Art, okay? Then I realized I could do it myself, and I called it the Goddess in Art, oldest tradition in art, you know, culture and spirituality. So then it was wonderful for me, because I started interviewing, you know, scholars and artists, and I did 25 shows, so over 4 or 5 years. And then in time, through a technological process, I got them on YouTube. So now they're available for anybody. And again, they're on my website. You can connect with them there. And, you know, so you can see different, you know, scholars like Maria Gimbutas, the great archaeologist who unearthed the goddess in the 20th century and gave us a foundation to rise from. This is Rion Eisler, Vicky Noble. Anyway, a lot of scholars, Christopher Castle, Charles Sherman, artists and mystics like Starr. So I interviewed a lot of people on the show. And I'm really glad that it still exists, you know, that people have access to it.
Yeah, thank you for finding a way to put it on YouTube. I know it can actually be kind of difficult to just post videos. It can also take hours of uploading.
Well, I had to take the 3/4-inch broadcast tapes and convert them to this and convert them to that. And I didn't do it. I had friends who were helping me, and then do all the coding to put, you know, something that was broadcast on TV to then be put in the proper formats to go on to YouTube.
That's amazing. So what was like the main kind of takeaway that you got after talking to all these people and when looking at the Goddess in Art?
Well, it was trying to bring back this female creative power, so much of which have been suppressed by patriarchal bias. The contributions of women are the goddess. I mean, she's the oldest image in the archaeological record, and in my book and in that icon of the vulva. a basis of civilization, which I love to say. I mean, I think it's a real revolutionary statement that it's not just androcratic warrior societies of, this battling and conflict. No, there can be societies, and were, of aesthetic appreciation, balance of power between the sexes, things that make life meaningful, freedom, creativity, enjoyment of life and nature. This was part of the goddess culture. And so that's a civilization. And I think there's a thread of that, because even though we do have all this domination in our culture, we still have love, and we still have participation in partnership, and we still help each other, because society can't live by rules alone. There is communitas, there is community, and that can never be stamped out, or everything would fall apart. And I think the pandemic really showed us how connected we all are.
Yeah, we had no choice but to hope to, be able to fall back into our community and be able to have some people to hear us, and that we can hear them. And yeah, I strive for community all the time. I've moved around a lot trying to find the places that you can go and safely be and be able to feel comfortable. It's a really, really, really important, necessary part.
But it showed how everything, something from Wuhan in China went around the whole world and affected everybody.
That seems to be the case. China's really good at doing that.
Well, I'm not saying anything. I mean, of course, I don't know what happened, if it came from a lab where we're doing, which we do, nefarious, horrible things. But I'm just saying it shows how connected the world is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And the internet is something that is so interesting and strange, mysterious on its own. It seems like it was always inevitable. And it's like there was a large part of my life where I didn't want to connect too much in the internet because it scared me. Like, and I would revolt against it because it seemed like because it was something unknown. It was a dark, mysterious thing. I didn't know how it worked, how it operated. Well, and so I was like, I don't trust it. I don't like it. It's not tangible in my hands. But then again, it's just something that we found and that we siphoned, and then look at this, like inevitability for us to all connect from all over the world and create an even bigger community. So It's, my viewpoints on that changed quite a bit.
Well, like this very instant, right now, we're all connecting, 2 spots in California, in Hawaii, that we can talk. And that's wonderful. I mean, so at this very minute, we're using its positive qualities. And, every light casts a shadow. I mean, yes, there's, it can contribute to togetherness, but it can contribute to separation and people feeling isolated, or just having just having virtual realities, but not connecting to people, and in the real, so-called real world. So, and a lot of hatred and horrible things can happen from there. But so many wonderful things, like when I was, like just now, you were pulling up images of Sheela's, or when I was doing research on my book, I say, I wonder about that little town I went to, Kilkenny. Let me look at that, and I could look at it. And when I first started doing my research, I had to go through all this stuff, but I knew people through my archaeological connections to get a pass to go to the National Library in Dublin so that I could do research on those archaeological or anthropological journals that were written in the 19th century when antiquarians first started recording stuff on the Sheela Na Gigs. And I spent days just Xeroxing these 19th century journals. Now I can sit in my room, and if I'm connected to a college, I can go to JSTOR and download all the articles. That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. They call it the age of information, and it's just so true. Like you give me an hour and a half and a cup of coffee, and I will pull up 13 old texts that are, dated from anywhere from 2,000 years old to 500, and in the matter of minutes. And so it is very curious to see where we're going, and if we can hone in the ancient matriarch in with this new technological society that seems so unbalanced. If we can really hone that in, we got a bright future ahead of us. And there's this and this book is finally starting to gain popularity, which is really cool. I heard about it a couple of years ago. It's called The Fourth Turning. It was written in 1997. There's a couple guys that started looking at history, started digging into these cycles, and that humans have been following these 80-year patterns, and that we're in a fourth turning right now. That we are in the fourth turning, going into this first turning, and we're in a crisis stage. And this theory is starting to gain more popularity because people are noticing a lot more repetitious cycles that follow this 80-year thing. Anyways, point being that I'm getting to is that it kind of categorizes the archetypes of generations into their roles and duties, and it changes and shifts. And at this point, seemingly anybody within the 1980 to 2008 range are going to be the age right before of the sages, but this age is the hero, and they'll be the heroes.
People born in that time era?
Yeah, anybody born within 1980 to 2008 are within the hero archetype, and anybody born after that would be in the artist archetype, that is born in the trauma and born in the chaos. So they are experiencing that and creating their art from the suffrage of the, so I think in the sense that we're, and before that, the age before that is the sages. And then before that is it changes each 20 years. And it's a really fascinating book.
But how many archetypes are there?
4.
There's 4. There's the sage, the artist.
I can look it up really quick. Yeah, the hero, the artist, the prophet, and the nomad. Mm-hmm. So the nomad is that, the nomadic group is the one before the hero, and the prophet is from that first golden age. Because after the turmoil, after the crisis, is the prophet that comes and rises from the ashes. Mm. And then after that follows the nomadic archetype. And then you build up from the prophet stage to being a nomad and discovery and journey and wonder and prosperity. And then from there starts to be a fall and a slip as you hit that climax, and you start to slip down. And
when did the artists come in? When did the artists
the artists come in after the hero, because they were children of the crisis. They were children of the trauma. Okay. And the book is called The Fourth Turning. It was written in 1997, and they brought out these theories and they fleshed out the stuff and they made predictions. They said, if this is the case and we're in this 80-year cycle, around 2008 should be when the next fourth turning will be the crisis stage, around 2008, which is significant because they predicted a downfall in the housing crash.
That's when we had the big crisis of the economy and the banks collapsed, right?
Exactly. And so that was in their book that they wrote 20 years before that, said that in 2008 that would happen, and that will last for 20 years. And we'll see the tail end of a crisis around 2028. And then around 2029, 2030, we'll start to see a rise of a more prosperous time. So if that's the case, that was what happened right after World War II. We were in the first turning. The 20 years before that was a 20 years crisis period. So strap in your boots. If this algorithm is correct, we could come out the other side, the hero class, waving the arms of the snake, of the matriarch, and get more balance.
The goddess with the snake in both her fists.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a great book. Anyways.
Well, things are changing. Things are changing. I mean, I think things are falling apart too. In my talk, I'll read you this thing. I just found this guy, Frederick Pollock, and he wrote this book in 1948, The Image of the Future. And he said this, and this is how I started my talk in that gallery last week. The rise and fall of images accompany the rise and fall of cultures. Once an image begins to decay and lose its vitality, the culture does not long survive. So here we are in the shifting of images. I think this kind of whole war god culture is shifting, and we're going to a more great creatrix. So
wow.
Yeah.
For me, it's the image. I originally titled my book In Pursuit of an Image, which was my guide, Starr, but the publisher changed it. So I just think we do have the shifting of images. And the images legitimize political systems. Cosmological images reinforce political systems, So I do think, looking at what you were saying about this turning and changes, that I do think these other images are entering into the psyche, and other older images are falling apart. Or they're not holding the culture together.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we saw the taking down of certain statues everywhere.
Yeah. Do you mean, are you talking about the statues in the South, or are you talking about like when the Berlin Wall was falling?
I'm talking about a couple of years ago, in the South, where they're taking down famous statues and whatnot.
Right, like the Robert E. Lee or all these Confederate soldiers.
Removing the old ones and replacing it with new stuff, new imagery.
Yeah, that's a very good example. Yeah. So it shows how the power of those images were decaying, right? They couldn't, people wouldn't tolerate it. Some people, of course, there was some people who didn't like that, who want to put up their Confederate flags.
Yeah. Well, we don't see the Sheela Na Gig getting taken down, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, well, sometimes these Sheelas, you were talking about the Reformation and something you sent to me, and when the Reformation started, that was sort of, and the Counter-Reformation, that sort of started the end of the period, or the epoch of the Sheelas, from those 5 centuries, because this kind of Puritanism came in. The church tolerated them as part of a syncretism, or tolerating the goddess, but when the Puritanism came in, they couldn't handle that. So many Sheelas were we don't know how many, but some Sheelas were destroyed, and other Sheelas that was felt were hidden to protect them, that people took them to protect them. And there is something about, one time this priest took down that Sheela, and the people couldn't take it, and they made him put it back up. So that's partly what's happening now in finding them, is, were they hidden? And again, some were thrown in riverbanks. So we don't know, but there did start to be a destruction of the Sheelas, but they couldn't destroy them all. I mean, some of them are way high up on castle towers or up in churches, but that was sort of the beginning of the end, that Puritanism coming in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't
what
wait.
do you think that the world will look like if we start accepting the divine feminine and the matriarch back into our modern society, and to bring not completely matriarchal, but bringing that balance in with a patriarchal society? If we started to go more in that direction, what do you think would happen to the world? What changes do you think?
Well, I would go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it.
Well, I would hope that there began to be a reverence for life, and that there was a sense, again, of relatedness and empathy. A society that doesn't have empathy and doesn't have a sense of the sacred, It just can't endure. I mean, that was another thing about the pandemic. We see our social systems falling apart. They're not serving us. And now we're in the middle of some new bank thing. And I mean, I feel sorry for the people of Ukraine, but now there's just another war, more billions and billions of weapons being sent there. And then there's this war here and that war there, that there would be more of a sense of community and connection, and that people would, that the money would be spent more on building schools and roads, and the schools wouldn't be turning out children to be cogs of the machine of state, but to be cultivating their own humanity and their own imaginations. And if you find what you like, you can concentrate. I mean, when I was in school, I thought it was a prison. It was a prison.
Mm-hmm.
So that there would be more humane schools, there would be, universal education, universal health care, universal democracy, that there would be just a much more caring society, and there would be a cultivation. To be an artist would be so valued, and that people would be, because everyone has an imagination. I was a teacher at Santa Monica College, used to teach literature, and I said, imagination, you all have it, so that we would be cultivating our humanity and more humane things, and that we would have more of a connection between each other, and that we could work out conflicts in a more civilized way. Like I used to teach a class on argument. Argument is supposed to be a substitute for violence, where you go back and forth. But now our civic discourse is so violent, that you just get applauded to saying the most extreme thing. So, I would take the money out of, you got me going, the money out of politics, that there would be no more, lobbyists and speech is money. No, that we would have people in the government that were actually servants of the people rather than the oligarchy and corporations. So those are some of the things, just some of the few changes I would like.
But is that because of like the
things too? Sorry, what?
Is that because of the nurturing aspect of the feminine that you think maybe our society has lost? More so than just, because I would like to change a lot of things in government, but what is if there's more of a matriarchal society where we acknowledge women for what they are and for bringing life into this world instead of treating them poorly?
Yeah, I just think the social structures would be different, like what I was saying. And yes, nurturing and giving would be a supreme foundational value rather than just read and taking what you can, and that people would feel connected and caring. So yes, and if we had all that, then we would be caring about each other, and we would be caring about the earth, and we would be creating things that were more serving everyone rather than, well, I'm a corporation, I can just pour poison here, or whatever that latest train wreck was, like Trump had taken away the laws of I don't know what it was, the brakes on the trains, and so that, I mean, I'm not saying it's a utopia, and of course, it's not individual men. I mean, it's a social system that everybody is trapped in,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know in your lives if you felt sometimes you didn't have certain choices. In my time, used to tell my students this, hey, people used to get drafted. How would you feel if you had to get drafted and fight in Vietnam or something? Just that there would be more of a sense of connectedness, and we would just shift in our values of what we value. Is it just, I mean, I love beautiful things, and I want to feel like I can support myself in a relaxed, comfortable lifestyle. But, I don't need 3 yachts or 3 people owning 50% of the wealth in this country.
Well, there's a way we can be comfortable without, obtaining all this excessive weight that holds us down. You know what I mean? Like maybe one boat, maybe just one yacht.
Yeah, right.
That could be cool. Now I can get down with just one boat. How are you going to be on 3 boats at one time? Doesn't make any sense, and yeah, granted, I do have a little moped and a truck. Now I think that's good. Oh, you always got to have your two-wheeler, But I digress. That's but I think that there's a lot of food. Like food is one of these essential things that I think is being neglected from our society. If we could incorporate a way to have more sustainable and free food given to people, that would change so much of the game. But what is food in agriculture rather than the goddess herself, associated wise? So I think if we could focus on agriculture and sustainability and giving people free food, that would be better. Like, don't give me $2,000 a month. I could care less about that. Make me not pay for groceries.
Or give me the food that isn't saturated with Roundup.
Yeah, I will pay for that. Absolutely.
Or for all of us in California, like I was driving up the 5, I was going up to San Francisco. Every 10 feet going up Trump signs. And what's the matter with supporting farmers and food? And then you just know that all that food is just poisonous,
Yeah. No, it is poison. It's so sad. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight. I'm very happy and excited.
Good.
And I would love to even potentially talk again if that would be of interest with you.
Sure. I had enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed meeting you. And I'm just saying, like not meeting that. I'm just looking at this artwork you have in the background. I find it very beautiful,
Thank you. Yeah, this one sometimes will move in the wind. It's a very simple piece. Yeah. I remember Dan saw it when I was changing another angle, and it was interesting. But yeah, these are dragons here. I love dragons.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, these are nice. Thank you. Fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to pay $5 million for a Picasso. You have this beautiful art right there.
My friend, well, check these. My friend just made these. Or she's giving me these pieces that she's been making.
Oh, cool.
She's moving from Hawaii out to San Diego.
Sideways.
Oh. It's just, it's a lot of collage work. She does a lot of different stuff. She makes like record clocks, and she does like flower pastel tables for restaurants in town. She's great.
And what feels better than to be connected with the divine fires of creation,
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. I would love to go see a Sheela and be transported into that sweet portal of consciousness. I'm down to transcend into that next level. It's an adventure.
I really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you fellows.
You too,
yeah,
Starr.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Returning to the womb.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead and tell people again where they can find your work and material and what you have going on and coming up.
Well, the best thing is just to go to my website, stargoode.com. And I have a lot of Sheela stuff and another book I wrote about humor and the spirit of play. But it had that icon of the vulva, the basis of civilization essay, and there's just a lot of stuff on my website, so that's the best thing to do.
And it will be posted in the show notes, everybody, so just go and give it a click, give it a link, give it a like, give it some love.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Hi, fellas.
Thank you.
Okay, until we meet again.
Yes.
All right.
Good.
Thank you very much, Starr. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and if you're not done with that,
wake up.